So let's get into percent proportions. Now, if you recall, percent proportions are essentially just the idea that anytime you're dealing with a percentage, if you use the formula is over of equals percent over 100, you can figure out whatever they're asking you to do. The reason being is that this phrase is usually representing a portion of the of, which is the original amount or the whole amount. And there's a comparison between the is and the of that will always exist when you're dealing with percentages. So we're going to do several examples. I'll do the first one, then I'll give the answer to the second one, and you'll confirm that you got it, and then you'll do the third one to be turned in on your own. So this first one says the price of a mountain bike increased by 20% in the past year. The new value is $150. What was the value of the mountain bike last year? So when you look at this problem, what we're doing is we're comparing the price of the new price of the mountain bike to the price of the bike last year. So that is the new being compared to the old. We also know that the price of the bike increased by 20%. So we're going to write 20% increase. I know my new amount is $150, so I'm going to write that down. And I'm always going to start off writing out my given information. So if I'm looking for the price of the bike last year, that's the old, I don't know. We can put a question mark or we can put an X. I'm going to go ahead and put a question mark for now, and then I'll put an X in the equation. So as it's always been the case, we say is over of equals the percent over 100. Now, as we plug in our information, we have to be careful and that we're plugging the information in correctly and that we're using the right final numbers. So again, the price of the mountain bike increased by 20%, and the new value was $150. Well, we know that the new value, we're going to say, instead of the is, we're going to call it the new. And instead of the of, we're going to call that the old value. The old value is what we're looking for, so that's going to be X. And we know the new value is 150. But what's happening here, if the price increased by 20%, that means that initially we had 100% for the cost of the bike, but then it was increased by 20%. So altogether, the new price of the bike, this $150, is 120% of the price last year, the old price. And as always, it's going to be 120% out of 100%. The price last year was 100% of the price last year. So if we say this one more time, the new amount, $150, is 120% of the old price, which we don't know from last year, and the old price represents 100%. If you take your time and read through the problems in that manner, you'll set them up right every time, and you'll get these questions correctly. So from here, how do we solve it? We're going to cross multiply 150 by 120. So 150 times, I'm sorry, not 120, but 100. 150 times 100, and then divide it by 120, because that's the only remaining number. So we can solve for X. And so when I do that calculation, I'm going to get 125. So this would be $125 was the price of the bike last year. So this X right here should have been $125. So make sure you go through that, see if it makes sense, clarify that all the steps were reasonable, and then let's try another one. So this time, the mountain bike increased by 50%. So a 50% increase. The new value is $300, and what was the value of the mountain bike last year? So the new value is $300. And then the old amount is what we're looking for because we want to know the value last year. Since we don't know that, we're going to put a question mark. So once again, We're going to set everything up, but I want you to try it out for yourself first. The final answer for this problem is going to be $200. And I want you to use your notes the way that we did in the previous problem. Set everything up the way we did in the previous problem and confirm that you got $200. When you do get that, then unpause the video and continue to see how we set it up and what we do from there. All right, so again, the formula should have been is over of equals the percent over 100. And so in this case, since we're talking about a new value and an old value, we're going to say new over old equals percent over 100. The new value is $300. The old value is what we don't know. Since the bike increased by 50% last year, it will be 100% from the previous year plus another 50% for this year, which would be 150%. And 150% is always going to be compared to 100, obviously. And so now we're just going to solve the problem by cross multiplying 300 by 100. And then we're going to divide it by 150. And if you calculate that for yourself, then yes, again, you should have gotten $200 for the price of the bike last year. All right, so for this third one, you're going to do the problem for yourself. You're going to set everything up, go back and read the other examples, and you're going to have this one ready to be graded when you come into class. So let's move on to question number 2. It says the value of an investment increased from $750 to $795. By which percentage did the value of the investment increase? So as always, I'm going to go through, identify our information. So we're increasing. That's important to know. It went from $750 to $795. We want to know the percent of increase. So I'm going to write out that my question is asking for the percent of increase. I don't know what it is, so that's a question mark. And in order to find an increase, I also always need an old value and the new value. So if I read through, I look back and I say, well, can I figure out what the old value is and the new value is? Well, because it's an increase, since the prices are going up, I should expect that the old value will be smaller than the new value. So 750 is smaller than 795, so 750 has to be the old value. And then the new value has to be 795. That is an important part of setting these problems up, because if you don't properly identify the old and the new, then oftentimes you'll get these problems done correctly from a mathematical perspective, but because you plugged in the wrong numbers, you still get it wrong. So now, since I'm trying to find out what the percentage of increase is, then to find the percentage of increase, I need to not only compare the new price to the old price, I need to find out how much the new price was a change from the old price. How much did the old price change to become the new price? So it's the change compared to the old price. Change over old, change over original, same formula, which is then going to be equal to that percentage of change, which is always over 100. So once I understand that, I'm going to go back through and say, well, how do I find my change? My change is just the difference between the new price and the old price. So 795 minus 750. And you'll find when you calculate that, that's a difference of $45. So this investment increased by $45. But it's $45 compared to the old price, which is $750. And when we do that, we're obviously looking for the percent of change. So that's an unknown, that's an X. and the X is being compared to 100%. Whatever that percentage is going to be out of a possible 100%. So to solve this again, once it's set up, it becomes pretty easy to solve. I'm simply going to multiply 45 by 100, and then I'm going to divide that answer by 750. And when we solve that problem, we'll end up with a final answer of 6%. And I know it's a percent because it's in the percent space. So our final answer shows a 6% increase. Very important that since it's a percentage of increase, you want to know how much it changed by. And you cannot simply use the new value in the numerator. You have to find how much it changed to get to the new value. So let's try another one. So this time, you're going to actually do it for yourself. And when you finish doing this work, if you set it up correctly, you'll find that there was a 6% decrease because the value of the investment decreased from 750 to 705. And by which percentage did the value of the investment decrease? So try this problem the same way that we did the other problem and find out and see why you got a 6% decrease. When you're finished, you can unpause the video and we'll go over it. So, how do we end up with a 6% decrease? Well, again, the question is asking for the percentage of decrease. So I'm always going to write that out first so that I know what I'm looking for. I don't take the time to identify what the question is asking me for. I might answer the wrong question. So the percent of decrease is unknown. But what I do know is to find the decrease, I need an old amount and the new amount. And so if it's a decrease, I expect that the old value is higher than the new value so that it can go down. So that means the 750 being the higher number is the old amount, and the new amount is 705. That's a critical part of how to set this problem up correctly. So now, since I'm looking for a decrease, which is a change, the change is being compared to the old amount. And that should equal to a percentage out of 100. So I can put the 100 here from now because that's an obvious portion. So I'm looking for I know the old amount is 750, so that also goes here, obviously. And so then to find the change, I'm just going to do 750 minus 705. And once again, you get 45. So since you got 45 again, this decrease will also be the same as the last decrease because you're also comparing it to 750. So it's over X. Solve it. 45 times 100 again. And then divide that by 750. And when you do that math, you will indeed get a 6% decrease. And we know it's a decrease because the price got lower. So 2C, again, you're going to do it for yourself. And you're going to make sure that you follow the same steps as the first two. And this one will be graded. (3A). A stereo that normally sells for $125 is on sale for $90. By what percent has the price of the stereo been reduced? So since the stereo's price has been reduced, by what percent has the price been reduced? Reduced is just another word for decrease. So I'm looking for the percent of decrease. I don't know what it is because that's the whole purpose of the question. Since I'm looking for a percent of decrease, I'm looking for the old amount and the new amount. So if I look for the percent of decrease, that means that my old value has to be higher than my new value. And this problem pretty much spells it out that way. A stereo that normally sells for $125, it starts there. It is now on sale for $90, so the old amount is $125. and the new amount is $90. So if I bring that all together now, I need the change compared to the original price or the old price, and that will be equal to the percentage over 100. So now 100 is obviously going to go on the same spot every time. The old amount is also easily filled out. That's $125 because I took the time to gather it from the problem initially. And the change will be 125 minus 90, which is going to give you a difference of 35. And so I'm looking for my percent of change, my percent of decrease. So once I solve for x, I'll know my percent of decrease. I'm going to cross multiply 35 by 100 to solve this proportion. And then I'm going to divide it by the last term, which is 125. And when you do that math for yourself, you'll find out that you get a 28% decrease. And again, I knew that it was a percentage because I'm looking for x, and x is a percentage. I knew it was a decrease because the price went down as opposed to up. So for 3b, you're now going to try this one for yourself first. And if you've done it correctly, you'll get a final answer of 50%. It's going to be a 50% increase. So go ahead and pause the video, try it out for yourself, and make sure you got a 50% increase. All right. So how do we identify, or how do we find out that this is a 50% increase? Well, again, go through the problem. Stereo sells for $90. It's now 135. That's an increase. Clue number one. By what percent has the price of the stereo increased? Well, they want to know how much it increased. Clue number two. So I'm looking for a percent of increase. So to find the percent of increase, I have to know what it used to be, the old amount, and the new amount. The old amount should be lower than the new amount because it increased. It means 90, the lower amount, is the old, and 135 is the new. So to find my change, comparing it to the old, the percentage over 100. My 100 is obvious. My old amount is also already predetermined. I'm looking for the percent of change, so that's an x. So the only number I need to discover is the change. And so since it started at 135, the difference between 135 and 90 is going to be 45. So to calculate the percent of change, I'm just going to cross multiply again and then divide by 90. So 45 times 100 and then divided by 90 will give me a final amount of 50% because it was a percentage. And since the price increased from 90 to 135, it's a 50% increase. So once again, for 3C, you're going to go ahead and do this one for yourself, and you're going to turn this portion in to be graded.